Hello and welcome to the CLB Forge podcast. This is the show to help equip you and your church for mission, ministry, and multiplying disciples. I'm Mike Natal.
And I'm Ryan Nilsson. Welcome to episode 9. Today's guest is Director of Communications and Prayer for the CLB and serves as Editor-in-Chief of Faith and Fellowship magazine. In his words, he was baptized as an infant but turned away from the faith, and through the outreach of CLB congregations, he heard the gospel faithfully proclaimed and received Jesus Christ as his Savior. He has an associate's in communication, art, and design, a Bachelor of Arts in religion, and a Master of Divinity from Lutheran Brethren Seminary in Fergus Falls, Minnesota. He was ordained in 2012, and he served as an associate pastor at Stavanger Lutheran Church, president of Messiah Lutheran Church, and he currently serves as pastor of Chippewa Lutheran Church. He's worked full-time for the CLB since 2010. He and his wife, Katie, have 2 kids and live in Fergus Falls, and he is the author of Footsteps in the Promise. Welcome to Troy Tysdal. Welcome, Troy. Great to have you here today.
Great to be here. Thanks.
See, you already had more than a one-word answer, Troy. You are living the dream. We're happy to have you here. For the guests and listeners who are listening, they don't know how interconnected all 3 of us are. So we're going to attempt to make it through this 25 to 30-minute interview with you, Troy, as professional as we possibly can. But there's no promises. And I just wanted to remind, go ahead, Ryan.
I think this 20-minute interview will only take us 45 minutes.
Right. And then we're going to have to cut it way, way, way down.
Yeah, with clever editing, we'll get it down to 50 minutes.
Yeah. It'll definitely show. Our editing team is going to be working hard after this interview. So we'll see how it goes. But Troy, we're happy to have you here. And like I said, the guests probably don't realize how interwoven and connected not only you and I are, but you and Ryan are, and that the 3 of us are. So we're happy that you are here. We're happy that you're joining us. And today I want to celebrate you for actually 2 things, Troy, whether you're going to take it or not, because I know you're very humble, and I know that you really don't like to praise yourself or the things that you've done. And so I'm going to do it for you. So first and foremost, I'm going to praise your mom and dad, because today is your birthday, Troy. And you thought that we weren't going to remember it, but we did. And so happy birthday to you. Do you want to share with the listeners how old you are?
42.
42 years young. And that's great. Man, milestone. Second milestone that we want to share is your dedication to Faith and Fellowship. Troy, you've been part of that team for 10 years now. And this upcoming episode, this upcoming magazine, which will drop when, Troy?
Issue.
Issue.
Yeah, it's actually being shipped today.
It's being shipped today.
Wow. Mailed out, yep.
And for those of you who are listening to this later, because episode 9 is going to come out a little bit later, today would be July 8th? 9th, July 9th. That's great. 2 days from now, my 11-year anniversary with my wife. And so you've been with Faith and Fellowship for 10 years, and you are releasing issue, is that what we're going to call it? Yeah. Issue 60. And that's amazing, Troy, that you've had the longevity.
Yeah.
Troy, that is awesome. Why don't you also share your social security number and your mother's maiden name?
Oh, yeah.
While we're at it.
We're all ears.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Yeah,
all right.
Wait, does it say issue number 60 on there?
No, it's not issue number 60. It's
okay.
It's like year 87, issue number 4.
Okay.
Like Faith and Fellowship's been around. It didn't start with me.
Right.
Yeah. So this is only Troy's 60th
I was blessed
issue.
To, take it over, which we do 6 issues a year. So that is, that's my 10th year.
Man, that's awesome.
10th year.
Yep.
And it's great. And if you're not reading Faith and Fellowship, Troy, how can people receive Faith and Fellowship if they'd like to know? Actually, can you just tell us a little bit about what Faith and Fellowship is, and then how people can receive it?
Yeah, Faith and Fellowship is the kind of the primary vehicle for our communication ministry. It's mailed out for free. It's paid for by generous support that comes into the synod, but it's sent out for free, and it talks about what each of our ministries are up to. We've got our shared ministries, International Mission, North American Mission, and Lutheran Brethren Seminary. So we've got updates on each of those in each issue, and then we've got usually 3 devotional articles that it's built around, kind of the theme. So it comes out 6 times a year, as I mentioned. If you just submit an address to us, we'll put you on the mailing list. It can also be found on our CLB app and on our website and on our Facebook page.
Tremendous.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing all that. Okay, so the first question that we want to kind of lob your way is, what do you do in your role? And you kind of shared this a little bit, but what do you do in your role as Director of Communications and Prayer?
Yeah, I got the awesome job of telling the story of the Church of the Lutheran Brethren. We do that through a few different vehicles, in print, in Faith and Fellowship magazine. We do it with Identity magazine, which is a youth magazine that comes out twice a year. Is what we're shooting for. It's been more like once every 10 months. Has been our pattern. Then we do that. We tell the stories on our website, on social media, on Facebook, on the mobile app. And then I equip the directors, the president, our associates as they visit congregations, and they tell the story, PowerPoint slides, things like that, help them with resources. So that's a lot of what I get to do. And there's a lot of exciting things that go on in those departments. So I steal their thunder a lot. I start telling, when I talk about what I do, I usually end up talking about what they're doing. And it's good stuff. So.
All right, I got to butt in here because I'm one of Troy's coworkers. So he makes everyone else look good. That's what you do. And you help every department accomplish their ministry goals and objectives. And you're a great team
But
player.
the real question is, Ryan, I know you're coworkers with Troy, but have you ever slept in Troy's basement?
No. Nope.
I have for a whole month. So I'm not saying that I'm winning this argument, but I'm just saying, like, I slept in his basement for a month.
Are you sure it was just a month?
It was longer than a month. Yeah, I definitely
felt like a year to Troy.
Did it feel like
how long was it?
I don't know. I'd have to look back. It was probably documented.
Yeah, it probably was.
Mike was my pastor, and he moved in under false pretenses.
You want to unpack that a little bit?
Well, I mean, there was apparently a minor flood in his apartment, and so he moved in. And while he was living there, in my basement,
Troy, did you ever see the flood, or did you take his word for it? First of all,
I did not verify that there was a flood. Yeah. I did not. But then he accepted a call out to Cranston, and the next thing I knew, he was like a permanent resident while he finished out his term and gave his notice at his current church.
A church that I love and care for deeply, and still do and care for deeply, and the people who are at it. But I specifically remember, Troy, that you definitely put me to work. And one day you had me cleaning brush and cutting down tree branches and getting rid of them. And then I'm pretty sure that night you and Katie and the boys like went off on a weekend trip, and it was just Baxter and I ended up having some sort of allergic reaction, and it ended with me going to the hospital because I was like all by myself. I had no idea. And Lindsay goes, "That's the most expensive Benadryl we've ever paid for in our entire life." So that happened.
That did happen. And I'm just realizing for the first time you blame me for that because of the whole brush cutting.
All right, Ryan, bring us back, Ryan, because Troy and I could go back and forth. I haven't even gotten into the time where Troy dressed me up as Moses during VBS and made me talk to like a burning bush before. So
you were great.
No, I think you were Moses, Troy.
No, I was Aaron.
Oh, you were Aaron. That's right. And I was
Yeah.
Moses. So, I mean,
Yeah.
we could go back and forth all day long, Ryan, but then we're not going to really cover what you want to cover. So bring us back.
I only have 30 hours of recording time on my SD card. So we better get this thing moving.
Yeah.
But
Sorry.
the bottom line is, like, the universe could only handle the two of you in the same church for so long. Is that, or the same house?
Good run.
It
was a good run.
Okay. All right. So Troy, we've got some, you're a great leader. I know from working with you, you're a great team player, and you are just a master at teamwork. And you were one of the people that helped me feel welcome when I started in my role just a few months ago. You went out of your way to help me, and I know you do that with other people. And it's so important. One of the main leadership concepts that we need our churches and leaders at every level in our churches to understand, that your biggest impact is not in what you do, but in who you equip and empower and mobilize. And I think you've been really great at that. So I've learned a lot from watching you. So this better be really good, because we got some leadership questions for you, and we want to ask you 5 leadership related questions. There's another a great podcast called 5 Leadership Questions by Lifeway. It's really awesome. You guys should check it out. They ask some of their guests, well, that's their whole theme. They ask their guests different leadership questions, and we want to throw some at you today too, for our listeners to benefit from you. So first one we would like to ask you is this: can you name a person who's had a tremendous impact on you as a leader? Maybe somebody who's been a mentor to you, or somebody who's influenced your life as a leader in a significant way, helped you to become the leader you are. And tell us a little bit about how this person impacted your life. That's so simple, yeah. Mike, for our listeners, Mike is pointing at himself. Oh, yeah. Hint, hint.
I thought he had a problem over there. I didn't realize that. Yeah, okay, he wants to be. Yeah, he's. Well, Mike, I will give you a plug. Mike is an awesome pastor. He was my pastor for 3 years, Mike?
About 3, yep.
3 years after he finished seminary. And man, he was tremendous. Reaching out to I watched him reach out to the lost. Like, yeah, Mike, you're a great pastor. You were not. I was not going to mention you. I'm glad you pointed at yourself so I could do that.
Hey, I'll take any plug I can get.
Yeah. I've had a couple mentors. I worked as a graphic designer and then as a salesman, and I didn't want to be a salesman. I was applying for a job at a company to be their graphic designer, and the owner of the company, I was interviewing with him, and he kept telling me, his name's Mark Ream. He kept telling me, "You belong in sales. You belong in sales." And so then I told him, "No, I'm want to be a graphic designer." And the next thing I know, he called me and he says, "Hey, you got the job. Oh, not the graphic design job. You start in sales in 2 weeks." So I needed the job. But my wife and I were trying to move to that area of St. Cloud, and so I started with him. And on my first day, we were buying plane tickets, and I was in 36 states in 6 months, traveling for his company. I didn't even know it was a traveling salesman job, but what he did for me was the first few trips he traveled with me, and this guy empowered me, encouraged me, taught me about the product, and then watched me sell the product, all in kind of like a crash course, and then stayed connected with me, and just continued to be just an encourager to succeed. Like, this was someone who made it very clear he believed in me, and yet held my feet to the fire. I remember he was trying to we were hosting these little luncheons to sell our product at lumber yards. So we wanted to put on these lunches, and I couldn't get anyone to host these things. I didn't want to feature the product. And he says, "You're offering them a free lunch to their customers. So if they're saying no to you, you're doing something wrong." And he just had this, you're going to find a way to get it done attitude. And he wouldn't let you off the hook. And it was great. Great mentor, great leader. and very successful. Uh, then I'm going to roll to another one. When I left that company, I started working for a sales company here in Fergus Falls, and I started working for Doug Thorson, who's a part of Bethel Lutheran Church, and I wasn't a believer at the time, and Doug was witnessing to me. So here he is again. We're working in sales together, but yet he's asking me about my faith, and I learned that Doug once told me that his work, all that he does for his company, is to fund his ability to do stuff for the ministry.
Mm.
So that was a Christian role model that not only did God use him in amazing ways to bring me to faith, but I saw him living his faith out. It was a great, really super cool thing. And then another leader that I have to mention is Dr. Bo at our seminary. Dr. Bo is, he has been a mentor and a friend to me, and he has encouraged me in education. He's the reason I had an associate's degree when I started at the seminary. Because of Dr. Bo, I got my bachelor's degree and eventually my master's degree, and really, again, a strong Christian leader, mentor who has instilled in me like a love for lifelong, like learning. Like I still go visit him to talk about theology. It's great. So those would be three guys that immediately come to mind, and there are many more.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's actually a really good segue too, you mentioning Dr. Bo and all of us having him as a professor who are here. One of the impacts that I've had with Dr. Bo is that he's so quick to point out that he's learning alongside us, even though he's the professor and he's the one who we're looking towards for knowledge. He constantly reminded us when he was walking in with his backpack and his huge stack of books that he is here to learn alongside us. And one of the most impactful things that you can do in learning is making sure that you are reading, is making sure that you are learning from others and growing in knowledge. So Troy, our next question is what are you reading now and learning from today?
I'm reading right now. I'm reading Unseen Realm by Michael Heiser, and it's kind of a glimpse into the spiritual realm. Michael Heiser is his concern is kind of that we've lost this idea of the spiritual element of the Bible and of the angels and demons and so he kind of tackles that stuff. But one of the exciting things about that, it's I can see the book could be a little controversial, but one of the exciting things about it is in reading that book, it's led me to conversations with both Dr. Privenow and our Old Testament professor at our seminary and Dr. Berge. And I've had these amazing conversations, just talking theology and talking about these spiritual aspects. And really one of the cool takeaways about from Michael Heiser's book that I've been reading is he's talking about spiritual warfare. And he gets into talking about how, if you're chasing demons in haunted houses, that's not real spiritual warfare. That's a distraction. The real spiritual warfare is growing the kingdom of God, expanding the kingdom of God, proclaiming the gospel. The lost are the battleground. And as someone who was an unbeliever, my heart is for evangelism, for witnessing, for seeing, for telling the story of Jesus. And then whatever happens, happens. Bringing faith to people is God's work. But to see that as kind of like that's the spiritual battle. I think that's a huge takeaway.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's great. I think that's a good reading skill too. To sometimes we think we can only read the things that we know we're gonna 100% agree with, and I think that's a great way to stretch your mind and expand your horizons and come to understand other viewpoints too. That and it becomes really an enlightening process for us. So that's great. Thank you, Troy. Um, uh, I got another question for you. What would you say is one of the biggest challenges facing leaders today, in your opinion? And you know what? We've made it through 2 questions. I'm really proud of us, you guys.
It's not bad.
Yeah. Yep.
What time? How far in are we?
You don't want to know. It's like 21 minutes.
21 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
The big challenge facing leaders today, there's a variety. I mean, there's the present circumstances that we're facing with COVID-19 and leaders seeing the challenge to how do I do my ministry right now when they haven't maybe been on social network platforms, or they maybe didn't even have a website for their church, and they're wondering how do I get there. And so communication is it's a challenge right now, and that's always a challenge. I think sometimes the purpose of that communication, it is to feed, it is to reach, it is to encourage and to grow, but we as a church, we're on that mission. And I think sometimes our biggest challenge is how do we continue to mobilize and to see the big picture of, again, expanding the kingdom of God, of reaching our neighbors and the lost. And I think that might be the hardest thing is to get people excited. There's a book I read years ago, and it was talking about how do you mobilize people? How do you get people to act, to do stuff? And the answer the book gave was you convince them they can win. The people will go, they'll act, they'll serve if they can win. And in the gospel we have one, Jesus Christ. Like this, the battle's still being fought, but the war's over. And I think that that message is one I like to empower people with. But I think that's the big thing, is kind of keeping our eye on the big picture and not just becoming stagnant as a church. That's a problem we face as leaders. We can slip into maintenance mode really quick, and even trying to find the right vehicles for our communication can take up a lot of time.
Yeah, great stuff. In order to bring to people's attention too, not growing stagnant is so important too. And also encouraging people to move outside of the church walls or outside of the church building walls in order to reach out to others too, is one of the greatest impacts that the church can have. Being the body of Christ, going and being sent is something that we can consciously always be aware of moving forward. So Troy, you have shared with us you turned 42 years old today. Happy birthday once again. And a good question to think about as it is your birthday is, if you could go back and give advice to a younger you when you first started your leadership journey, what would you say to that kid?
Besides, don't let Mike stay in your basement. Besides that.
You know what? Troy's not, he probably will after I say this, but I was going to say that was probably one of the best months of Troy's life. He loved it, and he still thinks about it, and he and Katie probably laugh about it, and the boys secretly just miss having me there. but that's okay. You don't have to mention it because I know that that's the truth.
Well, one thing about what I was worried about when Mike was living in my basement, I had a son born on June 7th that year. Mike moved in maybe in July, moved out in
Yep.
September sometime. And I was worried that kid didn't know who his dad was. Mike was there all the time. Yeah.
So what would you tell to a younger you?
To a younger me, well, that's a good question. Probably stay patient. I think one of the things that and have patience with people, you can really have this desire to this idea of how things should be done and what should be done. And then but you don't know the whole story all the time. And I think that's a lesson that I have learned slowly. I'm a driven person, and I like, let's go. There's always a destination. One of the hardest things when you guys kind of gave me a rundown of what we'd be talking about today is I don't look back a lot, and these questions tend to ask you to look back. So that's my personality, is just where are we going next, and realizing that there's not everybody's on that. We all might be on the same path, but we're not all on the same boat. We're all in the same boat. How do I want to say that?
All the boats are on a path, like a dirt
All the
path.
boats are on a path. Some of them have to make stops along the way, right? Yeah.
But some people are rowing the opposite directions.
Yeah.
The boats are hitting.
Yeah, and I bring up my own example, but that's been true for every company I've worked for, every organization I've been a part of. Is there are things to each position you don't see, and so patience and be open to learning and working with people, and you really do have to get people to come along with you if you want to achieve great things.
Yeah, that's a powerful lesson, and I mean that's good advice, to be patient and to work to make sure other people are coming along with you. That's powerful. And I wish you had picked something to be a little less applicable to me and my current life. So,
well, I was talking about you. I was trying to,
very subtle, very subtle.
Right.
No, thanks. I really appreciate hearing that. Yeah. What are some resources or next steps that you might recommend to someone who's looking to gain insight and becoming a better leader? And let's mess with that analogy a little bit more. All the boats that are on the dirt path. The one that's coming up behind you.
Right.
The leader's in the boat behind you. Huh? That's pretty good, right?
That's good. That's good. Well, I go back to patience. I go back to, I think you do set a goal too, though. You have a destination, you have a plan, set a plan, and not just something that's aspirational, but how are you going to achieve it? So a book that I have read was actually recommended to me by a guy I was in seminary with for a while, Doug Rogness, is The 4 Disciplines of Execution. And it talks about, setting 1 to 3 major goals. When people have more than that, they tend to lose their way and not accomplish any of them. But if they have 1 to 3, that they'll knock them out. And the other thing that book talks about is to accomplish goals. A lot of people, there's lead and lag measures. I understand how it works. I was just explaining it wrong. So you got lead and lag measures, and a lead measure is things you can control. So the lag measure is you want to raise $50,000. So that's what people tend to measure. Well, did we reach our goal? But that's a lag measure. You can't control that. What you can control is the lead measure. Did I you do some calculations, and did I reach out to 25 people to attempt to raise that money? And did I make that goal?
Yeah.
and what was the average. And so you start measuring those things that you can control, and then it'll help you assess how to better accomplish your goals too. So, to be a good leader, I say set a goal and set a strategy to get there.
Those are good. I've also heard those called process-based goals versus outcome-based goals, right?
Okay.
Same idea, right? We think, oh, we gotta, really setting goals around that process, the things are under your control that you can do, reaching out to so many people for this or that, for example. Yeah, those are great. That's great.
Awesome. Well, Troy, you made it to the end.
I
You
survived.
answered all the questions in a timely fashion, and you actually gave us more than one-word answers, as opposed to what you've been threatening us to do, where you're just going to tell us one thing and that's it, and then we were going to move on, and it was just going to be dead space. So once again, you've come through with flying colors. So Troy, thank you. Happy 42nd birthday. I hope you have something fun planned for today, or hopefully, there's something fun getting planned for you eventually. But we'll see. And regardless, you can look at this as the best birthday present you've ever gotten in your entire life, which is getting to spend time with me and Ryan.
Yeah, it was nice.
It was nice.
It was nice.
See?
Yeah.
What better gift than to spend time with friends, or at least people that you tolerate,
Lived in your basement.
or at least people that, if you want to find where Troy and some of his articles can be found, you can check out the clba.org app or Faith and Fellowship magazine, or you can check out the app as well. Wait, I think I just messed that up. You can go to the website, clba.org, or go to the app, which is CLBA. And to let you guys know, Troy also wrote a book that was referenced a little bit earlier, and it's called Footsteps in the Promise. It's a book that I love personally giving out to younger families who come in who have just had a new child born, or came in and had that child baptized. We give these books out fairly often. And it's great because each portion is like a children's story, along with some great artwork. But on top of that, the part that I appreciate the most is that there's a little blurb on the bottom of each children's story, which gives you as a parent or as a reader the opportunity to dig a little bit deeper and explain it to the kids a little bit better. So not only are you ministering to kids, but you are getting ministered to yourself as well. So Troy, fantastic job with this book, Footsteps in the Promise. If you'd like any copies of this book, Troy, how do they get their hands on it?
They can order them on our website, clba.org, or they can call or email us.
Nice. All right. So thanks to all the listeners.
Mike, before you finish your outro.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Your outro. We owe him a couple thanks too. Troy was one of the people involved in developing our logo. And he also, our name is tied to another project that's in development with North American Mission. And Troy helped us tie those two projects together, this podcast and that other project that's coming out. So we just appreciate you, Troy. And we're grateful for what you've done to help this podcast get going. And I owe you a great deal of thanks for all the hard work that you've done helping and supporting me with the stuff that I've been doing during the coronavirus. You've been a huge, huge resource, huge support, and a great advisor. And I'm really, really grateful to you for that.
You're welcome.
Nice. And I know you're waiting for a joke, but I don't have a joke.
No joke. Well, that logo too was a group effort, and I do gotta thank Krista Jar and her husband Armin Jar. They really wanted a smelting pot in that logo, and they worked to make that happen. They kept pushing on that. I had a big hammer above that. The bottom of the star
anvil
thing was an anvil, and I had a big hammer above it, and they would not let it stand. So there was a lot of help with that logo. It looks really cool. I'm glad it turned out.
Me too. Troy, you got your hand in a lot of stuff, and we appreciate it because we know that when you're involved with stuff, it's a success. So thanks, Troy, for all your hard work that you do. Thanks to the listeners for listening today and for listening to the show. And if you are thinking to yourself, man, I'd really love Ryan and Mike to tackle this topic, or I'd love a little bit more information of how my church could benefit from this, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love it if you emailed us with your ideas, or even with people that you'd love to say, hey, so-and-so is doing this really, really well, and I think that they would make a good guest on the show. We would love to hear all of that. And in order to get us that information, we have a fancy schmancy email that you can email us at, and it is podcast@clbforge.org. Don't miss next week's episode when we talk to crisis response coordinator Kari Janus about how churches can be a blessing to their community in times of crisis. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so that you can get notifications when the podcasts drop. And we'd love it if you would consider sharing it with a friend or a colleague. And that's all we got to say about that. And so we're going to say goodbye. If everybody else wants to say goodbye, go for it.
Bye.
See you later.
Made it. See you next time.
Good job, Troy.